Talking about forgiveness, and I know there are times that one might say to oneself, all right, I will forgive, I'm just going to let bygones be bygones, so on and so forth. However, I will only forgive if the person who has offended me owns up. I will only forgive if they acknowledge the wrong that they've done to me. Does that really work? Looking at forgiveness, and I mentioned earlier that oftentimes what we want is for the people who have offended us to own up to what they've done. And that, in some instances, makes it easier for us to forgive them. So even though we're willing to forgive, we are kind of like waiting for it. We've placed a condition on it. And that condition oftentimes might be, okay, I'll forgive, but they need to own up to what they've done. Now, if you look at Luke chapter 23, verse 34, Luke chapter 23, verse 34, Jesus was going to the cross. He was going to be crucified, and he was carrying the cross on his shoulder. He had been beaten. He had been spat upon. He was in a very bad shape. He had been, really brutalized, so to speak. And as he was going down that road, carrying the cross to where he was going to be crucified, the crowd who were about were just shouting, "Crucify him," raining abuses on him, so on and so forth. And I believe that for some of these people who were on that road, Jesus probably had, helped them in one way or the other. Maybe he healed their parents, fed them, when he was feeding the 5,000, so on and so forth. And these folks were just saying all sorts of things, against Christ, things that were not true. The interesting thing here is, in that portion of scripture, Christ did something. He said, "Father, forgive them because they do not know what they're doing." So we see something that Christ does here. He didn't place the condition on the offender before he forgave. So he disregarded the offenders. He didn't say, well, if this person is sorry, then I'll forgive them. He just let it go. And what he did is a really good example for us, which is he didn't base forgiveness on the remorse of the offender. He didn't say, okay, I'll forgive if this person is remorseful or if they own up to what they've done. Now, if someone owns up to what they've done to you or to me, that's great. But Jesus did not base forgiveness on that. So what am I saying today? What I'm saying is that following Jesus' example, we should not base forgiveness on the remorse of the offender. Whether the offender is remorseful, whether they own up or not, it doesn't really matter. We forgive anyway, not based on the offender's response, not based on the offender's remorse. We just forgive independently of that. That's how God says we should forgive.